The Bmore Football Podcast is brought to you by Rice Law.
Hello there. Welcome inside another edition. It is the Bmore Football Podcast. I'm Jerry Coleman. He is the longtime, we won't give you how many years, but longtime Baltimore Sun columnist. It's Mike Preston. You can follow us as Mike does religiously, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. That's at Bmore Sports Pod, Bmore Sports Pod. Bookmark it, like Mike, or also subscribe, and also at BaltimoreSun.com. In this episode, Mike and I recap the Ravens getting barbecued in Kansas City, the litany of injuries the team is facing, who is the actual leader in the Ravens locker room, and Mike gives out one of the worst report cards in franchise history. A lot to look forward to. We start with For the Birds. It's brought to you by our friends over at Rice Law. Hey, Baltimore football fans, if you've been hurt in a car accident, don't go at it alone. The lawyers at Rice Law know how to fight for the compensation you deserve. Protect yourself, protect your family, and remember, best advice, call Rice. Learn more by going to ricelawmd.com. That's ricelawmd.com. Well, Mike, the Ravens scored first, and then they got run over by a Mack truck in Kansas City. You were there to witness the massacre, which usually doesn't happen to John Harbaugh teams, but now it's happened in back-to-back weeks. What do you make of what occurred on Sunday?
Well, it was really bad because they were actually playing with a JV lineup. When you have all three of your defensive linemen out and a couple of them went on injured reserve, when your middle linebacker goes down in the first half, when your starting nickel corner goes down in the first half, when your quarterback leaves late in the third, you're not going to win many games. And they didn't. I thought they would lose by 7 points, maybe a touchdown of 10 points, but they got rolled. And usually you look at the history of John Harbaugh, usually when they lose a tough game, a tight game, they rebound and play very well. That didn't happen in this game. The bigger point in this is they got rolled by another supposedly elite team. You got to beat those teams. I mean, and that's what this season is about. 2025 is about playoffs. How deep do you go? And right now, they can't even beat the teams that are supposedly the elite teams. I don't care about the Browns. I want to know when you play Detroit. I want to know what happens when you play Kansas City, when you play elite quarterbacks, and they haven't gotten it done. So for whatever reason, they're a team that's struggling in just about every phase of the game.
All right, let's start right there because all this talk about Super Bowl aspirations, you've got to win the AFC first, and that means getting by Kansas City. And that's something they haven't done with Lamar Jackson. He has not been able to win at Arrowhead Stadium, one win altogether, I think, between John Harbaugh and Andy Reid since the series began between these two quarterbacks. It's been a one-sided affair.
Yeah, Mahomes is, 6-1 against Lamar Jackson. That's a statement in itself. And I don't even know what their record is in KC, but they haven't won very many games. So when they go there, they get rolled. The worst part was they even got beat, 17-10 in the AFC Championship game 2 years ago in Baltimore, and they got beat. That shouldn't happen, especially when you're on your home turf. But the Ravens, where do you begin with this team? Do you look at their defense and say, oh, it's pretty pathetic? I mean, they're last in just about every category there is in the NFL. Their offense basically went to sleep in the second half of that game. They didn't produce. Special teams were poor in that game, where they kept giving up big yards on kickoff returns. So the only thing that was good was Tyler Luke kicking 2 field goals. Other than that, they struggled, and that's not a good sign.
No, and we're going to hear all about the injuries on what many thought was the best roster in Ravens franchise history. But this team was getting shoved around even before some of these injuries occurred, Mike.
Yeah, but still, when you take it all into effect and say, wait a minute, they have too many guys out of the lineup that they can't succeed. And it got to that point where you just say they can't win. They cannot win this game because they don't have any guys in the lineup. Jerry, you looked at that lineup out there, that starting defensive lineman. All you kept asking were, who are these masked men? Yes. Who are these guys that are playing defensive line for the Ravens? Because I didn't know some of these guys. And I've been to a lot of training camp practices, but they were having guys out there I never heard of. And they're not going to win with those players. You couldn't get a pass rush. I think they had Tavius Robinson had 1 sack. Other than that, Mahomes, his jersey, his pants were clean most of the afternoon. You got to get pressure. They still don't have that guy. They haven't been able to find that guy. And the worst part was I thought there was going to be a shootout. Okay, Mahomes, Jackson, let's get this on. Second half, I'm like, this is going to be something special. That didn't materialize either because once they started blitzing Lamar Jackson, it was over. He has problems processing and reading defenses, and then you blitz him and you put pressure on him. His whole process is slow. You watch him run, you watch him scramble. His feet look a little slower than usual. So maybe it's the injury. Maybe it's the hamstring injury. Maybe there's something new in their offense. I don't know, but the process is slow.
All right, we're getting into all that just ahead. But a year ago, the Ravens had the lowest injury rate in the NFL. And a year later, the tables have turned. I mean, it's not going to always stay that way. But the rash of injuries that we saw Sunday is kind of unprecedented to have that many Pro Bowl caliber guys leave a game.
Well, that's always the X factor in every year. Who's going to get hurt? Who's going to remain healthy? And you see it all the time. Like earlier, maybe 2 weeks ago, it was all these quarterbacks getting banged up. And then all of a sudden it turns, and for some reason, the Ravens just got hit again. In the previous 2 years, they were in great shape. And that's even more disturbing about the previous seasons, was it they were in good position where they were healthy and they still didn't get it done. Now they're banged up. So let's see what happens. Can they pull it together? Can they right this ship? I don't know. That's an interesting question. And then we'll get into the Lamar situation and his status. But this is kind of interesting to watch. I don't know if it's sad, fun, whatever. But I kind of just see what's going on and say, all right, keep an eye out on things to watch because this is going to get very interesting.
Yeah, losing Ronnie Stanley made an already horrendous offensive line look even worse. And then the dominoes started to fall. We already knew about Matabike not playing, and now we know he's done for the year. We'll get to Lamar and his hamstring. Roquan and Marlon Humphrey look like reportedly they're going to miss several games. Nate Wiggins left with an elbow. But the hamstring injuries can be so fickle, Mike, because there's no solid timetable for return. We're seeing that with Kyle Van Noy right now.
Well, that's the problem. But it's kind of like having a high ankle sprain. You don't know when they're going to come back. Now, with Lamar, there's certain factors that you have to consider. One, where was his conditioning before he got hurt? Was it high? Did he lift weights regularly with the other players on the team? Is he injured or is he hurt? Which one is it? If he's slightly injured, you can wrap him up, give him a pill, and send him back out there. But if he's hurt and it's more severe, then he's out for a couple of weeks. My guess, and this is just a guess, he's out probably 2 weeks, maybe a third week to come back after the bye. And I think they're going to have to roll with that situation. Now, does that change their offense? Oh, heck yeah.
No.
Cooper Rush compared to Lamar Jackson? That's a tough one. We'll see there. But I think he's going to be out for a while. And, you know, when you're over 30, you have a hamstring, and that could get kind of nasty because you pop one, and it starts turning different colors. It starts getting that swelling there. When you're under 30, you respond better. And I'm pretty sure we all know about this, Jerry, because we're a little older. But that happens. So we'll see. But my guess, 2 to 3 weeks for Lamar.
All right, more on Lamar, because when it comes to number 8, folks actually were questioning the severity of his injuries Sunday on social media. We got a lot of uneducated people who pose as doctors thinking that he took himself out of the game and quit on the team. And I had to ask Coach Harbaugh about that on Monday because to me it was ludicrous.
Is that the case, or if the game was closer, would he have gone back?
No, that was the case. There was no way he was going to go back in the game. The injury precluded it, during the game, you really just you're playing the next series as a coach. But There was no way he could go back in the game. I know Lamar. I know the way I know Lamar. If he could have gone in the game, he would have been in the game. That's how he is. So, but I can assure you that he would not have been able to go back in the game under any circumstance.
Mike, you were in Kansas City Sunday. People saw him limp out of the locker room. You didn't speak to the media. When you're injured, you don't do that. But was there any question that he was hurt?
I don't care, and I don't question if he was hurt. I just say the guy's a competitor. He's in the National Football League. All right. You got 52 other guys out there who are playing just as hard to win a game. And whether you're in the last second, you're in the last minute, and whether you have a shot or no shot, you still play hard because they're competitors. It's the National Football League. So I don't question the injury. I don't even care if he was hurt or wasn't hurt. I just say they weren't going to win that game. And it got to the point where they had a chance to score, and then he would have kicked an onside kick if they were trying to get back in the game. They never attempted an onside kick. And I just said, okay, it's over. It's done, because they didn't do that. To me, that was the point where they said, just get him out of the game. Get anybody who's worth whatever out of the game and let the second string guys play, because those are the guys who are going to have to fill in this time gap, but they're not coming back. So I didn't have a problem one way or another, him being in the game or on the sideline.
But the notion that he tapped out in a game that was a blowout is insulting, I think, to him and to people that really follow the game. I don't believe that. Now, if he plays Sunday against the Texans, then we can raise those questions. But as you said earlier, I don't think that's going to occur. And they're 4-10, including the playoffs, the last 6 years without him as a starting quarterback.
So even if he plays, I just say he healed quickly. They gave him a shot, gave him a pill, took care of the pain, and he can play. I don't question his integrity. I think he's a competitor, and that's a key word, competitor. When you go out there, you want to win, and this is the NFL. Again, it's the NFL. All right, these guys are highly competitive. They all want to win. So I don't question whether he was injured or not. I just say, hey, he wasn't ready to play for whatever reason. And John thought it was the right decision, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, moving on to Derrick Henry, who's been virtually invisible the last 3 games, Mike. When the Ravens yank him off the field on a 3rd and 1, like they did in the third quarter at Kansas City, it has become so transparent. I basically said that to Coach Harbaugh during his Monday news conference about Derrick Henry's usage.
When you take Derrick off the field, I mean, does that sort of telegraph that you're not going to be running the football? I mean, is that
That's what I'm saying. No, it shouldn't. I mean, you've got to run the ball with Derrick off the field too, and I think you got to run some of the same runs that you would run with Derrick. You know, you run some of the power runs, run the wide zone play we ran. That was the touchdown run. You don't want to telegraph that. It's going to be, and it's also situationally, because a lot of times it's 3rd down, it's passing downs. Those are situations where people know justice comes in there, so you're already passing the ball, so that mitigates the tendency just a little bit. And he runs screens and he runs draws and things like that too. So some of it's down distance.
Mike, is there anyone in the stadium that doesn't know the Ravens are not going to run the ball when Derrick Henry is off the field, that they're going to pass the football like they did on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 the other day?
You know, that's a tough question. I think when it's 3rd and long and you put him in the game, Justice Hill, yeah, they're going to pass the football because he's a good pass blocker. All right, but other than that, there is no guarantee. I think sometimes they're looking for a lift. They haven't gotten it from Derrick Henry. So can Hill provide that? I don't know. But you got to take a chance. I mean, you rush whatever he did and produce, 48 yards, 47 yards, whatever. You look for a change of pace guy. Does Justice Hill provide that change of pace? I don't know, but I'm willing to give that a shot, because right now they have no running game. And if they can't run, they cannot win in this league. That's the way they're built. That's the way they're set up. And give it a shot, give it an opportunity. But for the most part, yeah, I would assume that when he's in the game, they're probably going to pass. But, hey, you can run screens. You can run draws. You can run a lot of things with him. Do that, because they couldn't slow down Kansas City's pass rush, and that was a problem for the 2nd straight week.
I just think they need to camouflage it better without Henry on the field. And what about Keaton Mitchell waiting in the wings? Are we going to see him?
I would give him an opportunity. I mean, now is the time. I mean, Derrick Henry's struggling. And it's not just Derrick Henry, all right? Let me make this clear. It's their offensive line is struggling. They gave up 7 sacks the week before to the Lions. Lamar Jackson was sacked 3 times against Kansas City. He was hurried 8 other times, which means he was hit 8 other times. Keaton Mitchell was a good change of pace back, but it's not about the running back situation. You can change it any way you want. It's about their offensive line. They're not getting it done. Their 2 guards, Falele is not getting it done. Roger Rosengarten isn't getting it done at right tackle. There's certain things that are going on. Voorhees, left guard, not getting it done. That's the problem. And they don't have any guys you can plug in. I mean, you already got Ronnie Stanley with an ankle injury. And remember, he's had surgery the past couple years before that. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, oh, it's the offensive line that's a little banged up. But would I change it just to give him a shot, Mitchell? Of course. You need something to try to spark this team and get it going. Hey, Keaton, let's run a couple tosses outside and see what you got.
All right, Mike. Now, another issue regarding the offense. Coach Harbaugh was quite critical on Monday of he didn't mention offensive coordinator Todd Monken, but it stuck out after hearing what he had to say about, after the game, it seemed like he had some criticism for Monken, and then he doubled down on Monday. Listen to this.
Our approach was good. I think we didn't stick to the plan that we had. We had an idea how we wanted to approach their defense, and we didn't stick to it. And I'm not happy about it. Neither's anybody. None of our coaches are happy about it. Especially, I'm talking about the coaches right now. That was us. So it was not a good job.
I have to tell you, I thought it was Zach Orr getting all the heat there, Presto.
Yeah, but that's just part of the situation, right? One, you could come out. Coaches fight all the time. I know coaches who have these drag down, knock them out type fights before over different philosophies and so forth. So that happens. All right. 2, if you really want to take the focus off of Zach Orr and that defense, which is ranked last in everything in the NFL, talk about the offense. 3, you ain't going to criticize the quarterback, all right, because that's your guy, all right? And 4, if you really want to do this, you just kind of say, we're struggling because you're 1-3, all right? And you have to find ways to fix whatever immediately. They get a chance to do that this week against the Texans, but there's a whole bunch of things that's wrong with this football team. So pick your poison, all right? Pick your poison this week. Which way do you want to go? There's a lot of things to fix on this football team. I bet you there's receivers over there who are angry because they're not playing. The problem is, Jerry, is when you win, you solve a lot of problems because nobody cares. But when you lose, all the eggheads start to surface and say, what about me? What about me? And I think the Ravens are now at that point where there are a lot of people saying, get me the ball, get me the touches, so forth and so on. But, hey, they're 1-3. That's the bottom line to all of this.
More of the Bmore Football Podcast right after this.
At Rice Law, we've won millions for our injury clients, taken on the biggest insurance companies, and fought in the toughest courtrooms, and made it clear, strong lawyers win strong cases. But none of that matters today. The only case that matters is yours, your fight, your future. And we're ready to go to battle for you. We don't rest on past victories. We fight every case like it's our only one. Because at Rice Law, the most important victory is the one we win for you.
Rice Law. Best advice, call Rice.
Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
For the last 25 years, Wood Home Insurance has been Baltimore's premier independent home, auto, and business insurance broker representing over 30 carriers. For example, need an auto quote? Wood Home shops them all. Geico, Progressive, Travelers, AAA, Safeco, and Selective, and sends you back the best rates possible. I have personally been a client for over 2 decades, and they are world-class in service. Wood Home's owner, Rich Gottlieb, is happy to schedule a Zoom appointment with you at your convenience. Oh, and Rich is a longtime Ravens season ticket holder, so when at the game, let him know where you're tailgating. He'll drop by and say hello. So for all your needs, it's Wood Home Insurance, 410-580-2800 or woodhomeinsurance.com.
Meet the newest member of the Jack Daniels family, Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry. Jack Daniels takes pride in Old Number 7 being the backbone of all our flavors, and Jack Daniels Blackberry is no exception. A combination of our proprietary black liqueur and Jack Daniels' unique and unmistakable character, Jack Blackberry is a highly versatile juxtaposition of flavor. Delightfully sweet, bold, vibrant, and refreshing, Jack Blackberry is easily enjoyed with your favorite mixer, in a cocktail, or while enjoying your next football game. Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry is here, and as always, Jack Daniels reminds you to drink responsibly. When it comes to financial planning, most of us need help. The team at the Jim Kelly Financial Group has been offering sage advice for Marylanders for more than 30 years, like the Baltimore Sun's Mike Preston. But Jim Kelly offers value beyond sound investment management through tax-efficient strategies, behavioral coaching during market downturns, guidance on major life decisions, from career changes to elder care planning, as well as life insurance. This is where experienced financial advisors like Jim Kelly and the professional money management he provides can make all the difference. Call today and see if the Jim Kelly Financial Group can help you and your family at 410-486-5575. That's 410-486-5575. Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time.
But would you agree the offense was sort of out of sync with the pre-snap penalties and some of the sloppiness that we saw, especially execution on 3rd and 4th down?
No, they gambled and they went into this game plan saying we have to be aggressive, and they were. I mean, what was it? Was it 4th and 1 at their own 41, and Lamar's in a shotgun, and I'm like, just get a ball to Derrick Henry. That's your best player, or let Lamar run around the corner. And they threw the pass, and Lamar threw it out of bounds as a throwaway, and I'm like, at least throw it to Hopkins and let him go get the jump ball. You get 30 yards on this play. At least it's a punt. They just did some really goofy things, and you can blame it on whoever you want to blame it on. They were out of whack. The pass he threw to Andrews, that's just a terrible pass where he's falling back. He's throwing off the wrong foot. He just kind of chucks it up. That's a bad play. Now, you can say whatever you want. That's a poor throw. And then you can take it even further, Jerry, and say, pass protection wasn't very good either. So there's a lot of things that happened in this game. They were just ugly.
I was just happy Lamar got rid of the football and didn't take the sack there. But what happened was they got Spagnuolo. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo turned the tables on them in the second half.
Yeah, but now here's my question. All right. You know they're going to blitz you because Detroit showed that the game before. All right. They're going to blitz you, and they're going to have a spy. Okay. Well, what do you do to counter that? You know you're going to run into it because the first series you went out there, you went 70 yards, 7 plays, whatever, and you score. All right. And you did run a screen pass in the middle to Justice Hill. Remember that play. Remember that play because that's how you slow pass rush. And then all of a sudden, you're going to get blitzed. So what's your counter? They're going to have a spy. What's your counter to that? They don't have any counters. They had no adjustments. Now, if I have a problem with Monken and that play selection, it's right there because you saw that the week before. Well, what are you going to do to counter that? They had nothing. And you can say that about defense as well. You knew Mahomes was going to throw those short passes in the middle, those tight ones that only he can throw. Well, aren't you prepared for that? Isn't Travis Kelce the guy who's going to catch those passes? Xavier Worthy, isn't he going to run the reverse? Come on, guys. I've seen this before. And I'm not even the coach. I'm not an assistant coach, but I've seen it before. I know what they run. Well, preparation, that's the key to this.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about the much maligned defense. Chiefs scored on their first 4 possessions. They didn't need to punt until midway through the fourth quarter when they were blowing the Ravens out. Now the Ravens defense has allowed 133 points in their last 4 games, which is a franchise high. This is an all-time low.
Well, the thing is they can't stop the run. I mean, and Kansas City didn't come out with these great running backs, but Pacheco is pretty good, and Hunt is pretty good. That's a solid tandem. But again, if you can mix the run, and it opens up the passing game, and the Ravens can't get their running game going, and the Chiefs did, and that's when they started slicing and dicing them. And that happens because the Ravens can't stop the run. And again, when you're missing your entire starting defensive line, that will happen to you.
But even the guys that were in there, and I'm sure this will be addressed during the report card portion of the podcast, the tackling was not only atrocious Sunday, it's been terrible all season.
Yes, very, very poor. You know, you can go back and look at some of those, and I don't call them highlights, I call them lowlights, where on one play, I think there was swing pass, and the Ravens missed 4 tackles. I mean, 4 tackles, and you could count them. You're just like, oh my goodness, guys, what's going on here? What has happened to tackling in the National Football League? My theory is you don't hit any practice anymore. All you do is you just basically it's a glorified walkthrough, and that's what happens when you get out on the field. They're not prepared for this. They're not prepared for tackling, and that's what you see the results of. So will they get better? I don't know. I mean, it's something that I'm pretty sure the coaching staff has emphasized, but hey, man, you just got to stick your nose in there and let it happen and see what goes on.
All right, moving on. I want to go back inside the locker room and talk about whether or not there's a leadership issue, because outside of Kyle Hamilton, it doesn't look like there's a bona fide leader inside that locker room. Roquan Smith disappears after losses. Clay Flowers isn't around much. Marlon Humphrey posts videos during the middle of the week. No one's really accountable right after the game except for Kyle Hamilton, it seems. And he stepped up, issued an apology 2 days after saying Ravens fans were spoiled. We can get into that in a moment. But the leadership issue, I think, is legitimate in there with guys bailing after the game.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. And I kind of addressed that early in the season when I said Lamar needs to kind of pick it up. But they don't have that leader. Roquan is not that kind of guy. I mean, he fades once they lose. Marlon Humphrey can be that guy, but he's a little weird. He just a little, but he's wired differently than a lot of players. They don't have that guy on offense. They don't have a defense. And we can take this back. There's no Anquan Boldens. There's no Ray Lewis's. There's no Ed Reeds. They don't have those kind of guys on this team. Even their tight ends, Mark Andrews, works extremely hard, but he isn't an outspoken type of guy. Do they miss that? Derrick Henry could fill that void, but he's not that kind of guy either. So, yeah, they're missing those leaders on both sides of the ball.
It's not in their DNA, and you can't make it up and sort of orchestrate it. It's got to be natural. And that's where I think Kyle Hamilton fits in. I mean, he's available after every game where some of these guys leave. What did you make of him calling Ravens fans spoiled?
What are they spoiled over? The team that goes to the playoffs every year and loses in the first round or second round? That's not being spoiled, all right? Sometimes, you know, you go and you say words and you ask them questions and you get that response. That's fine. I get it, because sometimes they're not equipped to answer those kind of questions at that particular time. But I was even more impressed that he at least backed off and said, okay, I misspoke. That's what I like. That's what I want to hear. I just don't want to hear a guy just yap and, you know, go on podcasts and start making all of these crazy sounds and noises. You know, you think about what you said, and then you come back and say, nah, I shouldn't have said that. I get that. I respect him for that.
Yeah, leave the podcast to the experts like us. All right. So with the defeat, the Ravens are still a Super Bowl favorite. Vegas has them at 8-1, even though they're off to their worst start since 2015 when they went 5-11. So while we're down on them here locally, nationally, I mean, a lot of people still have high hopes for this team.
I'm not down on them locally. I mean, look at the schedule. I mean, if they get through the first 6 games, Cleveland one more time, Pittsburgh twice. Pittsburgh's not setting the world on fire. I mean, they're okay, but no. Watch Aaron Rodgers down the stretch, see what happens there. Cincinnati, they don't have a quarterback. They're terrible, so they're going to be there. Now, what they do when they get into the postseason, I don't know if you're limping and you get there. That's a touchy situation, especially if you got to go on the road. But no, they'll win 9, 10, maybe 11 games, and the world will be happy, and they will get all of their guys back. And what happens after that, I don't guarantee that, because I've seen this team implode again year after year. But keep an eye on that. I still think they're going to be right there at the end.
And I agree with you. Only 35 of 252 teams that began the season 1-3 have made the playoffs. I think the Ravens, with the remaining schedule, should be able to accomplish that. I mean, Green Bay, to me, is the toughest opponent on the schedule. They still got the Browns again, the Bengals twice, who look pathetic. So did the Jets. The Dolphins finally won a game. These are all teams the Ravens are going to play.
Right. And in Green Bay, you don't know where they're going to be when they get to that point in the season. You know, do they have to win? I mean, nobody wants to play in Green Bay. You know, I don't want to go to Green Bay. But where are they going to be? I mean, are they going to be looking for a win? Do they need a win to get in? No one knows. So we really can't predict. Even the Steelers, they played the Steelers, but last game of the season, where are the Steelers going to be? I mean, are they going to come out and bring their starters, or the Ravens going to say, all right, we'll go win this game and we get in? No one knows. No one can predict. I will say this. There are 7, 8 good teams in the NFL, and the rest of them aren't very good. And they got a shot. And as long as they can play and stay relatively healthy, they're going to win their share of games.
Well, one of those teams that I think you would categorize as not very good are the Houston Texans. They just won their first game. They're coming to Baltimore this Sunday, a team the Ravens simply should beat. C.J. Stroud has had a subpar year. They just beat the winless Titans for their first victory, their first shutout win since 2010. That was before J.J. Watt arrived. But their offense had a season-high 129 rushing yards, and that was without Joe Mixon, who's probably not going to be available. They have Nick Chubb and this rookie Woody Marks. Nico Collins, also a dangerous wide receiver. So what about this Texans game? A team the Ravens have had their way with over the years.
They'll beat the Texans, even without their starting guys on the defensive line. I can't see that happening. The key, though, is watching the Texans' defense. Those guys can get after people. I think they're only giving up like 12 points a game. But they have 2 guys, the defensive ends, Daniel Hunter and Will Anderson Jr., 4 sacks for Hunter, 3 sacks for Anderson. They can get after people. And that's going to be a key issue to address. Do you play Lamar? Do you roll him out there against this defense? Or do you say, probably needs to rest another week and we'll see what happens? I think the key will come tomorrow if they bring Lamar out, for his press conference, which is usually regularly on Wednesday. If he doesn't post, Jerry, that's a sign.
Oh, yeah, we know he's not playing. If he doesn't practice or show up tomorrow, he's not.
Right, he's not. But again, the Texans can play defense, but they have virtually no offense. So the Ravens should win this one.
Well, the Texans have lost 6 straight to the Ravens and have not beaten them since Lamar Jackson arrived in 2018. It may be Cooper Rush, though, that they're facing on Sunday. All right. On to Baltimore and beyond, which is always sponsored by our friends at Relief. Relief Shop, Baltimore's best adult use and medical cannabis dispensary with 700-plus unique menu items and home delivery available for medical patients right there on Cathedral Street. It's Relief Shop. The AFC North, we've talked a little bit about it, but let's get more into it. Thought to be one of the stronger divisions in the NFL coming in, but this is the division that really is one of the worst in the NFL when you look at the teams. I mean, if you watch the Bengals on Monday night, they were unwatchable. Without Joe Burrow, they have no offense. Zach Taylor, they can't score, and their defense seems nothing special.
So do they make these changes in head coaches at the end of the season? Cincinnati, I mean, they're not very good. Cleveland, great defense. Jim Schwartz, Mount St. Joe kid running that defense, but they have virtually no offense. Pittsburgh, Aaron Rodgers, I want to see if he makes it through the entire season, if he slows down at the end. And I still see that same Pittsburgh offense I saw last year, where they're just throwing passes out in the flats. He will throw over the middle every once in a while and go deep, and I give him that, but I'm not impressed with them. And again, you already talked about the Jets. You already talked about the Dolphins. They're not very good football teams. So the Ravens are probably looking at this and saying, if we get through the first 6 games, maybe we go 3-3. We're pretty happy. All right. Then they wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the year because, this is the best team ever or whatever. But they might say that now, the way they're kind of limping around. But the AFC North, it's not what it used to be. It isn't what it used to be a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think we said at the beginning of the season, we probably surmised it was going to come down to the Ravens and the Steelers. Steelers got a lot of deficiencies, but Mike Tomlin always helps them find ways to win. So I believe it's coming down to those 2 teams. I just eliminate the 2 teams from Ohio immediately.
Mike Tomlin's a very good coach. You say whatever they want about him. He has a fire in him, and those guys play with a passion. It's not a great team. And the problem with the Steelers, they haven't had a quarterback since Big Ben left. 5-6 years ago, and they're kind of scrounging around now. But I really wouldn't want to play those guys in the postseason, even in Pittsburgh, because they're going to be hungry and they're going to play the Ravens tough. They usually do. They always will because of the rivalry. But I wouldn't want to play them. But who else? Buffalo. You fear Buffalo because they got Josh Allen. You feel Mahomes because he's the guy in Kansas City. And they just spanked the Ravens. But who else are you looking at? Denver doesn't put any fear in anybody's heart. The Chargers can't even beat the New York Giants with a rookie quarterback. So the Ravens will be there at the end. I don't guarantee it. I would only bet your money, Jerry, the money you make, because you make the big dollars, but not mine. Okay.
Not really, but I agree with you. I put my money down that the Ravens are going to be there at the end and make the postseason because the AFC North is so pathetic.
Right.
But again, we'll see if Aaron Rodgers finishes the season. I'm skeptical just like you.
More of the Bmore Football Podcast right after this.
We hope you never need us.
But if you're ever injured in an accident, we'll handle everything,
With trusted guidance and personal attention.
so you can focus on what matters most.
Your recovery. Rice Law. Best advice, call Rice.
RiceLawMD.com.
Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
For the last 25 years, Wood Home Insurance has been Baltimore's premier independent home, auto, and business insurance broker, representing over 30 carriers. For example, need an auto quote? Wood Home shops them all. Geico, Progressive, Travelers, AAA, Safeco, and Selective, and sends you back the best rates possible. I have personally been a client for over 2 decades, and they are world-class in service. Wood Home's owner, Rich Gottlieb, is happy to schedule a Zoom appointment with you at your convenience. Oh, and Rich is a longtime Ravens season ticket holder, so when at the game, let him know where you're tailgating. He'll drop by and say hello. So for all your needs, it's Wood Home Insurance, 410-580-2800 or woodhomeinsurance.com.
Meet the newest member of the Jack Daniels family, Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry. Jack Daniels takes pride in Old Number 7 being the backbone of all our flavors, and Jack Daniels Blackberry is no exception. A combination of our proprietary black liqueur and Jack Daniels' unique and unmistakable character, Jack Blackberry is a highly versatile juxtaposition of flavor. Delightfully sweet, bold, vibrant, and refreshing, Jack Blackberry is easily enjoyed with your favorite mixer, in a cocktail, or while enjoying your next football game. Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry is here, and as always, Jack Daniels reminds you to drink responsibly. When it comes to financial planning, most of us need help. The team at the Jim Kelly Financial Group has been offering sage advice for Marylanders for more than 30 30 years, like the Baltimore Sun's Mike Preston. But Jim Kelly offers value beyond sound investment management through tax-efficient strategies, behavioral coaching during market downturns, guidance on major life decisions, from career changes to elder care planning, as well as life insurance. This is where experienced financial advisors like Jim Kelly and the professional money management he provides can make all the difference. Call today and see if the Jim Kelly Financial Group can help you and your family at 410-486-5575. That's 410-486-5575. Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time.
All right, let's get to Mike Preston's report card, which would anger every parent out there with a kid in school. It reminded me of my childhood. Now, let's clarify something, because a week ago you told us if guys dressed and showed up, they would at least get a D. You have changed your tune, Professor Preston. Why?
Because 2 weeks in a row where they were just terrible. I got to give you an F because you didn't show up 2 weeks in a row. 1 week, I get it. I understand. It's high school. You dress for phys ed, you get a D, even if you don't participate regularly, but you get a D. This week, they didn't show up again. So, yeah, they got some failing grades. Quarterback.
Yes.
Let's start with Lamar Jackson. How do you go with 2 plays where you get delay of game? Huh? You explain that one to me. Delay of game. Hey, John Harbaugh, why don't you call a timeout? You see the clock too. Didn't want to waste the timeout. No, this is the time you go and use the timeout. The fumble he had, the interception he threw, bad plays, the 4th down situation I talked about earlier where he threw the ball out of bounds. Could play better than that. What I see with him, and I don't know if it's because of the injury, but his whole process is slower. I see guys running him down that would never do that in the past. And maybe that's because of the injury, or maybe that's because he's reading so much. But the thing is, you blitz him, you have a spy there, they're waiting for him. Now the Ravens, what do you do to counter? What do you help Lamar in that situation? How do you help him? So he gets a D minus.
Yeah, before you go on with that, what really stuck out to me was you wrote that he was a non-factor for the first time since he was drafted in his NFL career, and I think that was pretty accurate.
Well, I was waiting to see that shootout. Lamar versus Mahomes. That's what it came down to. Who's going to score the most points? And it didn't happen. It didn't materialize. And I didn't see it happening once they started blitzing him and having the spy. So it just didn't happen. So he got a D minus.
All right, let's move on to the running backs, who, again, were just 2 in Justice Hill and Derrick Henry. I think you mentioned Derrick Henry gets credit because he didn't fumble.
That's just a little shot. You know what I mean? The thing is, man, is when you're doing this and then they get blown out, you're in a sour mood. This is like being a school teacher when you're like half the class fails and you're just saying, oh, no, you all stink. Well, he stunk. And again, do I blame it all on the running backs? No, but I gave him a D. I mean, Justice Hill has the long run with 71, 72 yards at the end. No one cares. You were playing the junior varsity from Kansas City at the time, so I don't care if you had a 71, 72-yard run. All right? Where were you earlier in the game? Where was Derrick Henry earlier in the game? Where's that fullback, Patrick Ricard? And are we ever going to see this guy play?
Boy, do they miss him tremendously. I mean, because of the offensive line being so pathetic, that's where he really would have helped.
Right, and he's the lead blocker. Again, Ronnie Stanley pulling around the corner, Ricard 305 as the lead blocker, and Derrick Henry at 256. That's almost a half a ton of humanity. I don't want to see that if I'm a corner. I don't want to see that if I'm a safety, but he hasn't played yet. So, and I'm starting to wonder, will he play?
Yeah.
When is he going to play? He's the missing ingredient in this offense, at least as far as being the extra blocker. So they get a D. The offensive line,
Ole, ole, ole.
You know, what do you do to fix that? Do you roll him more? You know, I would probably think of that, just getting him out of the pocket so he doesn't become a stationary target. Quick passes, slants, Rashad Bateman, use him a little bit more. Those are the things that I would do differently and adjust. But those two guards and Rosengard, tackle, they're not getting it done. And you can say whatever you want. The problem is, Jerry, they don't have guys to plug in. And then you got Ronnie Stanley with the ankle. Nah. So they get an F. I'm getting tired of seeing that. 7 sacks the week before, 3 sacks, and then 8 hurries. You get an F.
Yeah, Lamar was once again running for his life because of the offensive line. And again, they're great at run blocking, but how come they didn't go out and address pass blocking?
I don't know. I've been asking that question for 2.5 years. Where are the pass blockers?
We'll save that when Eric DaCosta joins the podcast, because we have it on tape somewhere out there that he will join this podcast before this season is over. All right, let's move along to the wide receiver core. They seem rather average.
You know, they were average because, one, there were times when they weren't getting separation. But is that a result of the game plan, or was that a result of their coverage was that good? I've seen them play previously, Kansas City. Their corners can't play. You should have been able to hit some big plays on them. But do the Ravens even test them down the field? All right. Bateman. Oh, and these receivers, they're going to start complaining. I'm telling you, it's going to happen, especially when you're
quiet. You're right. They have been quiet.
DeAndre Hopkins, I need the ball. Mark Andrews, I need the ball, because they're playing for contracts next year. They want those extensions. They got to touch the football. They're going to start wailing away sooner or later. You're going to hear about it. But Bateman, get him more involved. 1 pass, 1 catch for 24 yards. Threw a lot of short stuff to Andrews out in the flat, but even he didn't even get many big yards. I don't know. I thought their passing game would be a little bit better, and they've taken Zay Flowers out of the scheme for the past 2 weeks. So I gave them a C.
All right, that's interesting that you mentioned the whining wide receivers out there, because it seems like the Ravens haven't had a diva wide receiver with Lamar Jackson around making that kind of noise like they do in other markets.
Well, the thing is when you're a run offense and you have a quarterback that can run off the perimeter, then you have Derrick Henry, you know you're second fiddle. You come into this market saying, I'm not going to touch the ball a whole lot, but all right, now they're struggling a little bit and saying, time to open this game up a little bit and see what we got. So they'll start whining. It's just a matter of time.
All right, let's move along to another weakness on the Ravens, and that's the much maligned aforementioned defensive line, which will no longer have Nnamdi Madubuike. He is done for the season with his neck injury. We can talk about his future a little bit later, but as you wrote, who are these masked men?
Yeah, you just kind of look at these guys and, you know, Koye, and he doesn't belong out on the field. They had another guy, Tupu, whatever his name is. I don't even know these guys. I watched them in camp, but they weren't playing a lot. So I was just like, they're not going to play. They're developmental. And all of a sudden, your developmental is your first line of defense. Not very good. They couldn't get any pressure on Mahomes. They had 1 sack. I gave them an F, but I gave the entire defense an F. All of them an F. Linebackers. You take Vanoy didn't play. Roquan didn't play. Adafi, he played, but he didn't play. They're just not very good.
Travis Jones, Madubuike. So
yeah, a lot of those guys didn't play, but still, Owe, come on, man. You got to turn it up a little bit. What is this, 5th year for him?
Yes.
Okay, you were first round pick. First round pick. All right. You didn't get it done. And that's been a problem with this team for a long time, but not just first round picks. We can get into second round picks. We're coming back from Kansas City, a doctor friend of mine who told me, he goes, what are the Ravens in their second round picks? They never pan out. And I'm like, name them. He goes, Dan Cody, Sergio Kendall. And I'm like, you got a point there. So I can't argue with that, but they get an F. Secondary, they miss more tackles than anybody I've ever seen. All right. I mean, and they come up and they're in position, but they don't stick their neck in there. They don't break down. They just seem to be a little bit off balance. And Marlon Humphrey, Xavier Worthy, they did a great job of looking at the film from the week before and saying, oh, if we send him in motion and he has Marlon Humphrey, let's take him to the outside. And they did. And got some big money on those throws. Marlon Humphrey on the inside, Travis Kelce, Roquan on that touchdown, boom, inside. A lot of their passes were those quick slant ins, and they took advantage of the Ravens. Where was the safety? Where was Malachi Starks? Kind of dropped off a little bit in the last two games. Their secondary, it's not very good. Nate Wiggins, it's okay, but nothing spectacular. So they got an F because all of them, the entire defense, F. I mean, when you look at their point totals in their run defense and their pass defense, yeah, they got an F because they effed up, Jerry. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, we went by the linebackers rather quickly because there wasn't really much to talk about.
There weren't any linebackers out there. I mean, they're playing Teddy Buchanan at middle linebacker for Roquan. Teddy Buchanan has no business being their middle linebacker. Not in this scheme, not in this defense. He's a rookie, and all of a sudden he's in the middle. Excuse me, not happening. Not happening at all. So they're just putting guys out there and filling some time and filling some gaps. But for the most part, no, they're not ready for prime time yet.
What about special teams? Did they grade better?
No, I mean, they just kept giving up all of these yards. Let me see if I got that here. On kickoff returns, they gave up
132 yards in total. They gave up 34, 47, 30, and 47 yards.
Yeah, 37, 47, 30, 47 yards. They had 4 returns for 132 yards. Case closed. D, all right? And that's because Luke could convert it on 2 field goals, but for the most part, not very good. And I'm pretty sure they can't be happy with their special teams play. And coaching, all right, I gave him a D, and the thing was adjustments. Where are the adjustments? When they come out and they run that defense and they're blitzing the heck out of your quarterback, what do you do to back them up? What do you do to back them off? They don't have that in their game plan. Defensively, they were limited to what they could do. I mean, they just don't have the muscle up front. And again, Jerry, I go back to the Eagles, Philadelphia. You know why they win games? Because they're so dominant up front. Their interior lines are very good, and that's why they win games. And you can say whatever you want about them. They come out and they kick your butt. And that's the way the game's played. And you can put all the pretty boys you want in there, all the divas and the good-looking guys, whatever. No, it comes down to who's whipping butt up front. And that's what the Eagles do. And that's why the Ravens, they lose because they don't dominate up front anywhere. And until that changes, and if that changes, I don't know, but until that changes, they're going to struggle to win games.
Some clarity on the coaching grade of a D. That isn't just for John Harbaugh. That's the coaching staff altogether, correct?
That's the entire group. Defense, I really don't know what you can do when you don't have manpower. You can come up with all the schemes and blitzes you want, but you don't win one-on-one matchups, you're not winning games. Offensively, again, I've already talked about them. What do you do differently? What do you change the pace of the game? How about going to a hurry-up offense so they don't get their personnel on the field? Do something, but don't just keep doing the same stuff over and over again, because you're not the 66 Green Bay Packers. You don't have that muscle power up front to be that dominant. You're not the 72 Miami Dolphins. You don't have that kind of muscle power or those running backs up front. Change the pace of the game. And I give John for credit for coming out. I mean, very seldom to see go after an assistant coach, which was a little strange, but he might have been a little off his game. He might have been a little off his game because, he probably heard some news about his quarterback and saying, we may not have him for a little while. So he might have been a little off his game too, but they get a D.
All right, last thing for you. You've done countless report cards over the years. I don't know how many, but this has to rank among the all-time worst, right?
Well, that's how they got beat. I mean, I remember last year when they were playing early in the season, you could give the secondary an F because they were atrocious, but they had no way of slowing down Kansas City. And the more that Kansas City played, and remember, the Chiefs were struggling offensively before they got into this game. And they had nothing. They had no counter for this offense. And then you look at their defense, they're still the worst in the National Football League until proven differently. So what am I going to give them? What grade would you give them?
No, I'm right on par with what you had there. I mean, they were atrocious in every aspect. So right. I don't know how you could spin it.
Yeah, I mean, I could spin it, but people would have been calling me out.
Yeah.
See, what game were you watching?
We don't do that here. We don't. So let's just hope it gets better because it can't get much worse, it seems.
Correct.
All right. We do want to thank our loyal sponsors for supporting this podcast. We appreciate their undying support out there. We're back after the Texans game. Until then, be real, be kind, stay healthy, stay optimistic if you can. We'll try, and we'll see you next week for another edition of the Bmore Football Podcast. We're out.
The Bmore Football Podcast is brought to you by Rice Law.